And here I am. Ah, boy. Ah, how's it looking today? It, I don't know. My video looks a little choppy. It might just be me. Good morning. I gotta get my hair smoothed out. As you can tell, my wig is probably, my wig's probably on its last couple of weeks of actually being able to not look like a fright wig at this point. It's just about gone. It's getting frayed. It's getting fuzzy. I may just have to break down and buy something cheap for the interim. And by cheap I mean still like $150. That's my hair is not cheap to maintain. It's cheaper than actually, at one point when I was trying to grow it out and I asked somebody, I go, what would it take? And they said, well, you'd still need to wear like a partial to cover the bald spots, and you'd probably need extensions to, cover the fact you have a receding hairline, and you'd need your hair colored. So probably about $500 every time you come in. And you'd be looking at coming in like every 6 to 8 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I'd be better off just, buying an $800 wig and living off of that for a year. Shaving my head. It's aggravating. That part is a little bit aggravating because I have to like every 4 days or so shave my head. Get tired of it after a while, but I was not graced with long flowing hair forever, unfortunately. If I had transitioned in my 20s, I would have had this beautiful curly hair. If I'd transitioned as a teen, oh my God. Well, I'd have looked like a lump with beautiful hair. I know that's actually a bit of dysmorphia. There was something I posted on my Facebook page this morning where it said, a guy made a comment, I think it was Twitter, where it said, if you thought you were a cis guy and you always dreamed of being a girl, but you wouldn't change because you figured you'd be ugly, congratulations, you had dysmorphia. And I thought about that. And there was a period of my life, and I've talked about this before, where I wondered if I was actually transgender or if I was just a transvestite. And during that period, I never imagined myself, my physical self, looking female. It was always someone who looked far more feminine than me. I had that mental block of I could never see the physical me being female. It was always, I wanted to be female, but I wanted to be this really cute, gorgeous woman. And that was dysmorphia. I mean, that was really dysmorphia rearing its head and saying, you can't do this because you're going to look, you're fearful you're going to look ugly. Nowadays, I don't give a shit. In fact, because a lot of you don't read my Facebook wall because you aren't my Facebook friend. And if you're not, why? But seriously, I had to work Jubilee Day in Mechanicsburg, which is like a big festival, day-long festival in Mechanicsburg. And I was working there as part of my league. I was handing out coupons, trying to. I only handed out about a dozen. Tough crowd. Nobody wants to know about Derby. Anyway, I was standing in line to get my blood pressure taken because one of my teammates, she was working at a Patient First booth and she was taking blood pressure. I was like, oh, I need her to take my blood pressure. It's so high. It's not, but that's another story. And while I'm waiting in line, this woman goes, is that your husband? Are you waiting for him? I looked at her like, you tripping? I go, no, that's not my husband. I don't know who that is. And she goes, oh, aren't you here with your husband? I was still like, you got to be kidding. I go, no, I'm not married. She goes, why not? She seemed like a kind woman. I found out later she was actually German. Because I heard her say something that sounded like she was from Brooklyn. But I was thinking to myself as I'm walking home, it's like, that's the first time anyone's ever asked me if I was married to some guy who was standing close to me. It's like, no. Trust me, we're not married. And if we were, he's not my kind. He's not my type. Trust me. That's actually, that's the first time that's ever happened. It was really kind of freaky because I actually did a double take. Like when she said that, I was like, what? What? My husband? No. Oh, no. Sorry about that. Oh, no, honey. Sorry. No, not even close. She was a kind woman. I didn't want to shatter her illusions. So, I'm never going to run into her again. So she thought, oh, that nice woman, she should find herself a man. That's fine. I'm never going to see you again. So, nope. Yeah, that was a good one. I actually liked that for a bit. It is kind of funny because no, just not me. Oh boy, it has been a crazy week. It really has. Back in practice. Wednesday night, I got to hit. Did a lot of things wrong. Oh, trust me. I'm so rusty. We had a guest player come in from Columbus, Ohio, and she was trying to show us a few things. And I was really like, I'm so damn rusty because it had been 2.5 months since I did any scrimmage work like that. And I told her that. I said, oh, man, I'm just really out of it. I back blocked one of my teammates so hard that I was told, if you ever do that during a bout, they'll like spell you right away. That's like egregious. We're kicking your ass out now move. And I apologized. And I said, here, let me, they were like, slow it down, slow things down. If you're not used to it, take it easy coming back. So I did. But I did a couple of things that surprised the hell out of me. One was I did something where I was jamming and the pack is here and I'm like hitting the pack and trying to get around the wall. And I started like coming over here and hitting against something. I popped over to this side as fast as I could, mostly on my toe stops and stuff, and got on my toes and hit over here, then pop back over here and hit here and pop back over here and hit here. And I did that like 4 or 5 times. And after it was done, I was like, that's the first time I've ever done that. It was a move I actually learned when I went to the Lacey Night Clinic several months ago. I was back in February. And I didn't push the wall as far forward because I'm still, when I'm doing stuff like that, I'm not sure of myself. But afterwards, I was like, wow, I never did that before. It was kind of cool. Another thing I did was I did my 27.5 at the end of the night, and I was just dead ass beat. I mean, I got out there knowing I probably wasn't going to have a good time anyway. I even told the timer that. I said, if everything had went right, I would have been lucky to hit like a 5:30. I mean, I just did not have anything in my legs. And on the second lap, I fell, which has happened before. I've actually fallen a couple of times before doing 27.5s. And it's always, seriously, it's always one of the most disconcerting things because you're finally getting into your groove. And like, I was just starting the second lap and I went into the turn and I felt my left foot start to go out from underneath me. It was starting to buckle. So I went down and slid to a stop. I always managed to do the baseball slide, which is what you're actually kind of supposed to do. And I just got right back up and started going again. You know, I didn't like get pissy or anything. I just like, get up, go. And I did. And I ended up with a 5:51. As long as I can keep them under 6 minutes, I feel pretty good. But yeah, I just told myself, oh man, I was dead. I really was. I mean, toward the end of it, it was all I could do just to move my legs. I'm not one of those people who has a lot of energy at the end of the night. Basically, since we were doing a lot of 3-wall drills and scrimmaging drills. Hold on. By the time we get to the end of the night, my legs are usually shot. You know, I can do some stuff, but man, trying to skate 27 laps as fast as I can, I'll give it a shot. You know, that's my new attitude is I'll go out there and I'll do it. But man, I know it's going to be like rare as hell that I will get a good time off of that. I'm one of those that you're going to get me on my peak performance earlier on than you're going to get me toward the end. Although I've had a couple of like do them at the end of the night 27.5s where the time surprised me that I did a lot better than I thought I was going to do. So it's just, I knew that night my legs were shot. I mean, I could feel it. I was just like, oh God, no, you know, it's not going to be good. But I went out and did it. You know, Roxy said, Cassidy, because she said a couple of girls got to do their time. And me, I came into practice that night and I wasn't my best. So for some reason, I just kind of blew it off. And then I hear her go, Cassidy. Like that. I go, oh, okay. So yeah, the attitude is 27.5 time. I'm doing them every fucking practice until I get it. You know, I got a month. I'm not gonna freak out. The clock is running. It's a month to our next bout. Yesterday was actually a month, 30 days. So, you know, gotta work on my endurance, work on my strength. If I can get it in the next couple of weeks, you know, I've got like 5 practice attempts to get it. So who knows? I have a feeling it's going to be for me. It's going to be one of those things that's just going to all click that night and that's it. You know, it's just going to go. But again, like one of my other teammates, Rocky Galboa, told me, she said, you know, really the only way you build up your speed and your endurance is by doing laps. And it is true. You know, the more you do, the more you do. Although Monday night we had a bad cardio. So we were kind of taking our time doing cardio, push drills. I am not a fan of push drills. Let's just put it that way. I am not a fan of push drills. We did a push drill, and I can't even tell you how many laps I did. Because about midway through, my teammate's skate started to malfunction, so she had to go off. And after, you know, people went by like 2 or 3 laps, you know, they told me go out, just go ahead and skate laps. So I was literally skating as fast as I could around the big track. And I think I ended up doing like 6 or 7 laps. And it kind of surprised me because I was just pretty much zipping along at a pretty good pace. And then when we were done with that, well, since our time for our push drill was not that good, we had to do a 40 and 10. We ended up actually doing it at 40 and 12 because we had freshies in the pack with us. But yeah, we ended up And I'm skating about 80 laps. I think it was around that. I'd have to figure it out, but yeah, it was yeah. About 60 laps at least. Damn. And that was all. And when you're skating like 25 laps on the big track, that's like the equivalent of skating like 36 laps on the Woofed. Yeah. So it's probably something Annie's gonna have to do one night. Yeah, she had to do her first 20 laps. You'll get to see the end result of that, I think, tomorrow. Her first practice. You already saw her start her first practice, where they were skating 20 laps at an easy pace. Trust me, when you've never been on skates before, easy pace can be a killer. But all these little witches are in pretty good shape, so at least they should be. And of course, if they catch any using magic trying to bolster their strength, they're going to get zapped. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of writing, actually, man, I've been doing a lot of writing. And like I said, I finished chapter 22. I'm going to pull it up right here, so I'm kind of looking at it. I finished chapter 22 in part 6. That ended up becoming, let me just pull this up. If I bring up part 6, that actually ended up becoming so far the largest chapter in that part. 6,894 words, almost 6,900 words. The next biggest one was chapter 20, which was 65. So it ended up being a fairly large chapter, and it went really quick. And I moved on to part 7. Part 7 is called Travelogues, and that's because it's all about the kids going different places. And as I indicated, I went ahead and, well, I decided the next thing I was going to write is going to be chapter 24, which is Yule and Pamporovo. Yes. We're going to get to see the kids going out, doing their thing for the holiday. This is where they go and spend Christmas back in Bulgaria. Well, for Annie, it's usually her going and spending Christmas, but this is Carrie's going with her. And it's actually a big chapter. I have not checked some of the other chapters, but I think this one probably has the most scenes I've ever put in a chapter. I counted them off last night. And there are 14 separate scenes. It starts on the 19th of December, 2013. And goes all the way up to the 5th of January, 2014. So it covers a 2-week period, just a little over 2 weeks, because December 19th, 2013 was a Thursday night. The 5th of January, 2014 is a Sunday. So I'm actually going to put a graphic up of this so you can see it. And it's so big that I actually have to go to like little cards, the corkboard cards, to show you the whole chapter, because it extends, you have to actually roll it to get down to it if you display it in line layout. It's the outline layout. The outline is just really crazy. Gotta love it. But that's what I'm going into next, and I'm actually going to start writing that today. And it's going to start off kind of strange, because you're going to see something happen that has never happened before. Seriously, it has never happened before. It's a first. But it's actually going to damn. It's actually going to come across I don't know what I'm doing here. Stop it. Stop it. It's actually going to come across kind of like a roller coaster. It's going to be an emotional time for both kids. I mean, Annie is happy to have Carrie there, but it also means, certain things are going to have to be discussed that she didn't know that she was going to discuss them that early. One of the scenes in this chapter, scene number 5, is called the scene of the event. That's when Annie takes Carrie out to show him, my Freudian slip is showing, show him the lake house. And we already know the significance of the lake house. So, this is going to be a big deal. And it's going to feel a little weird, actually, for both kids when you think about it. Annie's been out to the lake house, and she already knows the significance of it. And she understands the vision that she and Carrie both had concerning what goes on in the lake house. But this will be the first time that both of them have actually been in the lake house at the same time. And it is going to be a bit weird. There's going to be some strange vibes going on when they go in there, because it's going to be like, wow, we're looking at a place where we're going to be like in 4 years' time. So their first time there, it is going to be like a little strange for them both. And they're going to be all over the place. There will also be a scene in here, happens on Christmas morning, where Carrie and Victor get to spend some quality time together. I've been thinking about that scene for a long time. And it's going to be kind of interesting, because Carrie sort of dreads being with Victor. He, now that he kind of understands the dynamic that happens with fathers who have daughters, Dad's sort of looking at him as Carrie's the guy who's replacing him in his daughter's heart, and that's not always taken well. So there's going to be a little something that happens, and if you can imagine it involves flying, keep imagining that, because that's actually what's going to happen. Victor and Carrie are going to go out on a little flight early Christmas morning, and it'll give Victor a chance to stop and talk to Carrie a bit. And it's, Carrie's going to realize that, Annie's dad's hauling him out. First, we're going to fly, but he's under no pretense that this is going to end up with some kind of talk at some point. Fortunately, it looks like the family gets along. And you get to see, one of the things I want to try to do is, you've always heard Annie talk about how her family, her mother and father, are kind of like touchy-feely lovey. Even nowadays, they've been married for, 16, 17 years. And they still, you can tell that there's still a great deal of love between the two of them. That's one of the things I want to show too, and show it through Carrie's eyes and let him see, what Annie's family is like, because he's already said, his family doesn't show a lot of affection toward each other. His mother and father, they sort of like, they're in a room together. That's it. With Victor and Pavlina, it's a different situation. Victor still loves Pavlina a tremendous amount, and Pavlina feels the same way toward her husband. And it's just, a completely different dynamic with those two. And yeah, Carrie will get an opportunity to see that. You'll get an opportunity to see that too. All the little touches and comments and stuff like that. And then you'll understand where Annie's coming from. You see, that could also raise a different dynamic too, because if Victor sees that, it's going to start him thinking too, well, what else are these two up to? Pavlina already kind of knows, she knows what kind of girl she was when she was Annie's age. And she knows Annie is a hell of a lot more. It's not so much, I would say, rebellious. Annie is not rebellious. Annie just knows what she wants, and Annie is not afraid to take it. That's the thing. And Pavlina knows that about her daughter. She knows that she is assertive, and that when she wants to be, she can be aggressive. Pavlina is under no illusions about Annie, while she suspects they haven't had sex, and I think that's already been confirmed. She's like, my daughter's going to do what the hell my daughter wants to do. I can't tell her not to, because it's not going to work that way. And fortunately for her part, Pavlina does not try to corral Annie. That would be a big mistake. Then Annie would get rebellious, and she might end up doing a lot of things differently. So, it's interesting. You got to love it. I really can't wait to write this. There's a final chapter in part 6, which deals with an accident Carrie has. And it's an accident caused by Lisa. And there's actually going to be a kind of a long conversation between Lisa and Carrie. Probably not that long. But you'll find out a little bit of kind of what makes Lisa tick. And it's not good. It's hard to say. One of the things that's going to come out of it is what Lisa's motivations are for really hating Carrie. And you do find out she does hate him. She does kind of really hate Carrie. And she's actually the one that initiates the conversation, which is even stranger. It's sort of like there's a line that Carrie's going to say at the end of the scene, which will really kind of define it all. And, it's going to be interesting. I've thought about writing that next and then decided against it. I'm thinking after I finish Yule and Pamporovo, I may go back and write that scene. The thing with Yule and Pamporovo is, even though each scene is probably not going to be that tremendously long, even if I only write 1,000 words for each scene, there's 14 scenes. That's 14,000 words. And even if you write 1,000 words a day, that's 2 weeks worth of writing right there. I mean, yeah. And the two things that come after Yule and Pamporovo, there's only two things that come after that. A Weekend with the Girls and the Polar Express, both of which are going to be rather long chapters. And then we'll get into part 8. And there's something that actually happens there. Losing their religion is part 8. And I've already done chapter 28 out of that. But yeah, I'm actually now having to think back about what's happening in every one of these chapters. And because Act 3 is almost completely barren. I really haven't done much with Act 3. So one of the things I plan on doing in the next few weeks is plotting out the rest of the novel and getting it all into position and making certain that everything is the way it should be. That's this is the longest it's ever taken me to plot out a full novel. Because even with the A and B novels, when I started them, I probably had 3/4 of the novel, each novel, plotted out. I know one of the biggest problems I had with the A novel was there was a whole section where, I really didn't know what was going to happen between Ostara and the end. And that was when the whole Kansas City operation hit me. I kind of know what I want to do up to the end of this novel. I just haven't laid it out. And that's going to be something I need to take care of. And probably within the next few days, I'm going to end up laying out all of the rest of the novel so that it is done. And I'm going to put notes in there because I'm looking at some of these chapters that I've got here now. And I'm going, what the hell does this mean? Really, I am. I'm kind of looking at it going, what actually did I mean when I put this together? So I know what some of the things that are going to happen. And I'm going to lay some of this out because some of this is on my Eon timeline. And I've had it there for actually years, not just months. But I think when I started laying out this part of the novel in Eon timeline, I actually did it like 3 years ago. This is, again, one of those things, the C&D novel have been just laying there for a long time, doing nothing. Really, they have. It's just been there for the longest time, doing nothing. I knew what was going to happen, and I've made minor adjustments as I've went along. But the basic outline of what was going to happen in the C&D novels is there, and it has been there for the longest time. It's just finally now getting to them, which means the E and F novels, I have a good idea of what I want to do with them, but they're not in as much detail. So at some point within like the next year or so, I have to start laying out the E and F novels to be complete. Yeah. And get all that done. But that's one of the things I want to do. 2 things I've got for this novel is to finish this chapter, which, like I said, chapter 24 is going to be a big chapter. Actually, all of these chapters, except for chapter 27, chapter 24, 25, and 26, are all going to be pretty big chapters, simply because First is Annie and Carrie having Yule together. Second is Annie basically watching Carrie go off on the Polar Express and then heading off with Helena to go do a Guardian Op. And then we switch back and we see Carrie and Emma doing the Polar Express. And it's to be known that what Annie is doing is happening at the same time as what Carrie is doing. So that's actually going to be, I think it's the first time I'm actually setting up 2 chapters that are running concurrent. But in Girls' Night Out, near the beginning of it, it'll actually be the second scene where you get to see Emma and Carrie leave in Girls' Night Out, and then we go on to what's going to happen. Because the first scene in that chapter, in chapter 25, will be Helena addressing Annie and telling her, hey, I got something coming up next weekend. You want to come along? And of course, Annie's going to say, yeah. So you get to see Annie on an operation. And the reason that chapter 25 is called Weekend with the Girls is because it is an all-female operation. Helena is going to be the handler. Annie is going to be part of a level 3 group, which means it will be at least 4 other girls with her, all of whom have done at least one field operation. That will be brought up in the story, that's the reason that Annie's there, because she has successfully completed a field op. And there's going to be another person. It's going to be a bit of a surprise. There's going to be another person who's along for this operation as well. And this is another one where I've actually had this scene planned out for probably 2 years now. And I'm finally getting around to doing it, which means I'll have to go back and consult my maps and everything else. But it's going to be kind of a tough scene. Yeah, you're going to get to see Annie on her own, working with a group. See how she works with a bunch of other girls. And then when that scene is done, then we move back to seeing Carrie and Emma, which is a completely different kind of scene, because we go from Annie being part of this large group working together to achieve a purpose to it's just Carrie and Emma. And you're all alone out in the wilderness. That's the hard part, being all alone out in the wilderness. And of all the things that I've done, the Polar Express is probably the one thing that I've had planned the most. Realistically speaking, I began planning the Polar Express in December of 2011. That is actually probably before that. Probably in October of 2011, I started putting it together. So, we're coming up on 7 years. I've had this scene, had this chapter kind of worked out, and I've known pretty much what was going to happen during that chapter. So that's the longest I've taken to go from what I want to do to actually doing it, or so far. It's about 7 years that it's taken me to get to the Polar Express. That's a lot of time when you think about it. And I'll get there. So, and why is the title of this video Classical Gas? Actually, it's because before I started doing this, I was actually listening to some music. I have my Music for Witches song list. And I'm trying to pull it up now, which at this point now has 91 songs in it. That's a lot of songs. And it's all related to music that let's just put it this way. It's music that actually does appear in the novel. Some of it would be music that if we were doing this as a YouTube show, I'm going to turn on the speaker here, you would actually hear. And Classical Gas, this was one of those that I decided a long time ago. Originally, like I said, the Yule holiday that Carrie was going through at this point, he would have ended up, the way I'd originally conceived it, staying at school and having to deal with all this. We got it playing in the background. Dealing with the loneliness that he had to go through. And being in touch with Annie and talking to her and stuff like that. I've changed it because it does, as it was pointed out to me by several people, it seemed kind of ridiculous to have that happen, especially when you know how Annie's parents feel about Carrie. This song was one that was going to be used for, like, I could visualize it as a montage of Carrie flying on a Christmas morning all alone, having to deal with the fact that he was alone. And this is an old song from the 1960s that I loved. If we were doing this as a Netflix show, this would be Carrie flying around the mountains of Pamporovo on his own, but feeling a lot different. Feeling a lot happier, a lot more wanted, and now feeling a bit more free because he can actually get up in the morning, grab his broom, throw on his cold weather flying gear, and go out for a morning flight. This is actually going to take place in the novel on Christmas Eve morning. And there's a reason for that. But you can almost imagine Carrie flying through the mountains of Bulgaria while this is playing, because he'd probably have it on his computer blasting as he's going through the mountains in Bulgaria. And I can visualize it as a scene where he flying around all these different locales, with the end of it coming with him coming into a hover and landing. Since he's so good, he could land on Annie's back porch. Because remember, they live right up in the mountains. So there's going to be a lot of snow around their house. This is probably one of the best instrumentals I can remember from my childhood. And this is good flying music. It would make a great Netflix montage of Carrie flying. And it's not long, too. It's only 3 minutes long. Yeah, there's actually, in this group, there's 4 songs there in that group that actually make up kind of a montage of things. I kind of, I actually kind of got the idea from Charlie Brooker, who is the creator of Black Mirror, of putting together a list of songs for these stories. He did that for his episode San Junipero. there's a lot of music in that episode, and it does play an integral part for the episode itself. In fact, as he pointed out, if you listen to the songs, there are clues that kind of tell you what's going on. You just have to be in the know. And once you've seen the episode and you remember the songs that have played, the clues become obvious. And he put together a list of, I think it's like 42 songs, because I actually duplicated. It's actually 41 songs, but one song gets played twice. And I duplicated the song list that he put together on Spotify. And he said these were songs that appeared in the episode that he had wanted to appear in the episode, but didn't for one reason or another, or that he used to kind of set a mood for writing / filming the episode. So I decided to do the same thing. Music for Witches, my playlist on YouTube, which is a public playlist, by the way, and has been viewed almost 2,300 times. Not all by me. It's sort of the same thing. It's sort of the feeling, various songs that actually do appear in the book. Songs that, if I could envision this as a series, like a Netflix or an Amazon series, they would take up montages, and others that just kind of evoke a certain feeling for that particular part of the show or the novel. It's just there. That's how I do it. Hey, if it works for Charlie, it works for me. And it's also kind of funny because you can sit there and since the list keeps growing, like when I get to the point in the novel where I go over the songs that Carrie's actually going to play during Ostara, those songs will actually end up in the list. I don't want to put them out there now because it would be a giveaway. But those songs will actually end up in the list eventually. Yeah. So it's a living document of sorts, because I've just added like a couple of songs in the last couple of days to the list. Yeah. That's how I roll. So Classical Gas, a big montage. Be a montage for flying, and it evokes kind of a feeling that I want for it. Originally, when I was invoking it, to be honest, when I envisioned the scene of Carrie flying alone at Christmas time, feeling isolated, it didn't fit. But I still wanted to use it for some reason. At the time, I felt that Carrie would be feeling a whole lot of repressed anger. But now when I listen to that song, and I imagine it as Carrie using it while flying through the mountains around Pamporovo, getting back to Annie's house, he feels a lot more upbeat. And the music seems to fit with his mood. He's a lot more upbeat. The music is very upbeat. It's going to be a much happier event for him. And that music fits. That's what I want to go for. Okay. I've been talking for almost 50 minutes now. 49 minutes mark right there. So, yes, I will. Let's see. Got another minute. Yeah, 50 seconds, actually. Everything's been going pretty good. I can't complain. This has been a good week. My teammate Rocky even told me, she says, I've noticed you've got an entirely different attitude when it comes to practice. I do feel better now at practice. The meds are helping. They're helping me focus at practice. They're helping me focus on my writing. Although I'm 2 episodes behind on Humans, I've been lazing on that. So probably in the next couple of days, I need to get that out. But that's another story for another time. So tell you what, Take care. I'll see you around, and I'll be back next week. Bye.